Hey everybody, Chris here with Christcross Crafts. You might be wondering, what in the world is this thing? I've never seen one of those from Rikon. Well, you'd be right. This is the Rikon 60-2500 2.5 horsepower Cyclone system. Brand new, never before seen. And I'll tell you what, I love it. You're going to want to watch the rest of the video to see about this bad boy.
Well, here we go, off to the races. You might be saying, how in the world did you get one of these? Well, I'm a huge fan of Rikon, as you can tell in the background. I have several tools of theirs, and I was in the market for a Cyclone, so I reached out to them just to see if they had anything coming down the line, something new. Well, sure enough, they did, and those folks at Rikon were crazy enough to let me have one of those to do some testing. So this is what we're doing. We're going to unbox and do some assembly and test, so come along for the ride.
Well, turns out all you needed to do was take those bottom screws out and the whole thing comes off. Who knew? Now you do, because I told you.
Alright, so let's get to unpacking. It's like Christmas around here. Well, they did a great job of packing that in. That crate was pretty heavy duty, and everything was nestled in snug and tight, and had plenty of wrap around it. And a lot of the stuff fit inside of something else. And so it was a little tricky figuring out without an owner's manual, which you'll find out later, that, you know, how to get that out. It took me about 10 minutes to figure out, and like an idiot, all I had to do was undo that band, take that cone off, and boom, there's everything I have access to. So that's what I did. Wasted a lot of time, but coming together nicely. Unpacked, unwrapped, and ready to roll.
Okay, I got it all tore apart. Side panels, shelf, looks like a drum cover, cage that goes in the drum, the funnel that goes down to the drum, the cart that goes under it, the motor over there, part of the impeller system. There's the main hub, there's the filter. Only thing I'm seeing is not here, well, is the owner's manual. So I guess I'm doing this old school. Let's see how I am at putting puzzles together. Love it. Okay, so I have the hardware and all the components it came with laid out. So these have their respective bolts, so I know where those are going to go. This will go on the back on the filter. This is the splitter housing that goes on the front. Over here I've sorted out all the components. This is the casters for the bottom of the tub. Here is a mess of bolts. Here are 3 specific bolts which I imagine will serve a purpose. I have one singular bolt that has a lock washer and a flat washer, and then I have 4 bolts with an assortment there. And of course I have my cheer wine, because without that none of this would get done. It gives me the energy for the rest of the night. And then I've got my hardware right there. So it came with tools. Yours may or may not look like this when you get yours, but this is how mine looks. So I know how essentially how things are going to have to go. And there's the tub and the housing. So I'm going to work on trying to sort this out and start assembling this bad boy.
Okay, now that I'm done wandering around aimlessly, let's start putting this sucker together. I did have one image to use to start assembling this, so I tried to use that image and work from that. And so I started, since the housing was upside down, I figured, well, I'll start with the top down, but upside down and backwards. Yeah. Well, I was having some problems with that center panel, and there's a reason why. It was actually manufactured considerably shorter than it needed to be, about a ½ inch, but Rikon's aware of it, and they assured me they have already taken care of that for production. So clamped it together just to get the bolts in and keep trucking along.
Okay, I think I found my first problem. Not really problem, but my error. You see those holes right there and right there? Well, I think these handles go in there, and those need to go to the front towards the drum. So I've got to flip this assembly, but I also need to take that off because I had a hard time getting that on because these pieces were slightly bowed. So I think what I'm going to do is just going to take these 6 screws out here and here, rotate the whole assembly, put it back, and then I'll reassemble the wheels so that they're oriented the correct way. So let's do that.
Okay, now that that's fixed, let's start putting the casters on the drum. That is a 46-gallon drum, which originally I was going to use a 55, but I think that's sufficient enough for what my needs are going to be. So it works. Put the cone back up on the housing, and now it's time to flip it up. Now this is where you may be impressed. I did put a box on the 8-inch inlet, but that's not why you should be impressed. Look at the sheer force and muscle and manliness that is right there. I mean, unreal. It's just untapped talent. But anyway, it's upright, and now I can start kind of getting an image and a vision of what this thing's going to look like. So I'm putting some of the little parts and pieces together, those little handles we mentioned earlier, getting those on there. And it's really starting to look like a Cyclone. Look at that massive 8-inch inlet. I decided right away that's how I was going to run that, was off the 8-inch inlet. Temporarily I did have to hook it up to my old system, but so much for that. You'll see more about that later. Alright, well, I've got the motor upside down on the barrel, and I needed to go ahead and get that flange installed. And that flange runs between the motor and the impeller. And the impeller does have there's a keyway on the shaft of the motor that impeller locks into, and there's a little set screw that helps hold that on. And I wanted to make sure everything was going to fit nice, so I did get those bolts fastened first. And I'm running through the parts list, process of elimination, and understanding, kind of seeing what I have. Well, sort of. Anyway, getting those bolts tightened up, get that flange nice and snug, and now just making sure I put that impeller on the correct way, and hit it with my fist just to make sure it's good, and of course it is. So get that tightened on with that little set screw, and we're about our business. Now pay close attention to how that looks, because that will change later. Alright, time to show off my muscles again and hoist that big motor up on top of the machine. Sure wish I was just a little bit taller. Life could be so much easier. Anyway, moving on, lining up the holes on top with the holes in the top of the motor flange and making sure those are lined up, and I'm just going to get all the screws started. And I'm not sure if this is in the owner's manual or if this is how they recommend it. I did snug each one and then sort of did it like putting a wheel on, and tightened everything really tight, going from opposite end, and then working my way back around, filling in the gaps. Who knows if that's the right way or not. That did have a piece of weather stripping on top, so I know there's a good snug seal on top of that. And good looking machine though. It's starting to really come together. Now time to put that switch on. And the switch is fairly simple. I'm not sure if that's the correct way to wire it or not. Once I see these in public, I'll know if there's like a place for that wire. I just kind of hung it off the back side of the side piece, and that seemed to work okay. Getting everything tightened up, ready to rock and roll with that. And you can get a good glimpse now. It's really starting to look like that Cyclone. All the parts and pieces are there. And one final piece to really make it be a Cyclone is to fasten that tub down. And so I start with that. That is a 10-inch hose leading down from the cone into the tub. And that tub does have a clear window, so you can kind of keep an eye on the dust levels when you go in there. I may or may not add something, sort of a warning system, but for now at least it's got the window that I can kind of keep an eye on it. There are adjustments on the bottom of the lid, and one of the things I do like about this over other versions of the Cyclones out on the market is instead of lifting the tub up to the housing, it actually pushes the lid down onto the tub. To me, that makes a lot more sense, and it ensures sort of even pressure. Okay, now time to get that bag on there. Now you'll notice there are clips on either side that actually hold the bag in place while you finagle that band. I do like that. That's very helpful. In the past, I've used magnets, and those worked out really well, but don't need them anymore. And now for the big bag for the waistband barrel. Well, that's a mouthful. Anyway, the bag slips right over the lip. That shark cage thing sits right down in there. I was very careful in putting it in. That keeps the bag from getting sucked up into the dust collector. And this will come in handy later, or should have been earlier. I did neglect, it was the last part I missed, and after some searching I figured out where that went. It went right there. That's what locks that impeller onto the motor, as well as the set screw. So I took it all back apart, fixed it. Okay, so let's get a few inside looks of this rascal. That's from the top down to the bottom. And let's go get one from the bottom up to the top. And let's get one in the inlet and inside the motor area. And you can see it's nice. Not bad. Lots of room for plenty of shavings and chips. There's a wider lip on the back of the drum lid that actually keeps that from going any further. So it kind of sort of self-aligns, if you will. This, I believe, is a very cool machine. And you'll see later when I test it that I think you'll agree. I do believe this will be a fantastic seller for Rikon once they launch this and it becomes part of their normal production line. Very, very excited to be a part of this testing process. Thanks for watching and coming along with me. Oh wait, there's more. I put together a quick little chart just so you could see the before and after. The before was with my 6150. The after is using the same 4-inch lines on the 60-2500. Pause if you need to read that. Worth a checking out. Alright, now for the rundown. These specs are per Rikon. Some of these may change on the production model, so feel free to stop and pause if you need to read these a little further, but these are the ones they gave me based on this particular machine. There you go.
Well, there you go. I'm excited about getting this thing pumped up and getting it to its final resting place, and certainly not running just simple 4-inch pipe. Well, there'll be a future video on that, I guarantee it. But until then, this is Chris with Christcross Crafts, featuring the Rikon 60-2500 Cyclone system. Love it. We'll see you next time. Hey Ma, I'm in a submarine. Warning, keep plastic bag away from children.